Good afternoon, one and all. This is Ken Sylvester with the Believe Me movement. I'm here today with my co-host, Robin Alexis. We have a very special guest in our seat of honor today. Martha has a story to share with us. And without further delay, let's have Martha tell us her story. Are you ready, Martha?
Sure. I guess to start off, I'll just talk about growing up. I've always been incredibly stubborn. If you talk to anybody who knew me as a child, that would probably be the first thing they would describe me as is stubborn. I don't like being told how things are. I like feeling how things are. When high school, I gave a debate talk once that probably lost me some friends, but the thing that I've always wondered is innocence versus ignorance. And if you look at innocence in the dictionary, it always talks about innocence and legality of breaking the law. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll find out that innocence is actually having life's experience and not understanding the bad things, versus ignorance, which you have absolutely no education. I have had lots of education, and I still remain innocent because I wonder. And I think everybody needs to wonder. As a kid, I wondered about everything. I still wonder a lot. I wish I could wonder as much as I did when I was a kid. I grew up in a very Christian home on a farm, and it was a beautiful childhood. I was told that there were miracles all around me, and it's funny, when you have them, they're not so accepted. So one day when I was a little girl, I come into the house, and my mother said, "Oh, what have you been up to?" "Oh, I was talking with Jesus in the rose garden." And she said, "Oh, you were praying." No, we were talking. We were talking about the roses. And my mother had a very uneasy expression on her face, and she asked me if he was gone now. And I said, "I think so." So I've always heard voices, and of course, that one was Jesus. I expected to talk to Jesus because I grew up as a Christian. Anyhow, there's a lot of double standards out there. And when I was in the chicken house, I was about 8 years old, and there was this very powerful voice talking to me. And I think that there are voices always talking, but not necessarily everybody's listening. Anyhow, there was this voice in the chicken house, and it didn't make any sense to me. And it was saying, "Shanta Chan Fife." I didn't know what that was, so I looked it up in the dictionary. I couldn't find it. My next eldest sister always confided in me. So I asked her, I said, "What does this mean?" She says, "I don't know." I said, "Well, it's coming from the chicken house. The voices in the chicken house are saying this." And she said, "I think you need exercising." Well, I was comfortable with that because I love Jack LaLanne. And I was always exercising. He was one of my idols. But she meant that something evil had happened to me. So I still, to this day, do not know what that meant, what they were trying to say. But I did learn something. Don't talk about the voices. So I still hear voices, not as much as when I was a child. But when I met Nels, who's now my husband, he always knew when it was the end of the conversation, because he's a pretty good debater. And I would end it with, huh, my little voice said so. That's it. And that's still the war cry of our relationship today. I listen with my heart. I make decisions with my heart. I went to high school and I couldn't wait to get out because I wanted to really study things. So there's a lot of interesting standards out there. And I think one reason I'm here today on this podcast is maybe it is time that people start talking more about these things, because I think that we had a need to evolve from where we are. We've been told over and over and over how things are and how we should accept things. I just had a real revelation because we're watching movies on television now that have ads on them. And I haven't seen ads since before tobacco and liquor were banned. So that was a long time ago. And now it's all about what's wrong with my body and what drug I need. And I think that's absolutely violating.
Yeah, I do too.
We need to question things, and I don't see enough of that happening. You know, we owe a lot to people challenging that Earth is not flat. I mean, just think if Galileo had not challenged that, and if some of these other people had not challenged that. First, he challenged that the sun didn't rotate around the Earth. Oh my God, shocking. But they finally let him do his publication in the mid-1500s. And it wasn't for decades after that that he could finally prove to the world, after he was dead, that we are living on a sphere. So maybe we're also living in a world of different dimensions, different voices talking to us. If God created man, well, I don't think he stopped there. So anyhow, I grew up on a farm with a beautiful night sky. I just Googled my childhood farm because I'm actually writing a story about this right now. And where we used to herd our sheep to get sheared is now rows and rows of houses. And the driveway up to our house is full of security lights and parking lights for a big high school. But I grew up in the country, and it was dark, and there was lots of stars. And every now and then, there was something else. One time when I was walking with my sisters, we saw this bright pencil come down. It's the best way I can describe it. We're all looking at this bright pencil, and it just sort of stopped. And then it turned more of a round shape than a V shape. And then it kind of circled around a little bit, and then just shot out. So that's something I actually got to see with other people. But there's always been a couple times when you got just a big something in the sky, and you have to realize that back then all these satellites weren't up there. Shows how old I am. But so to me, I've always accepted. I think there's a lot of magic out there. I also am very sensitive to parallel places, I guess you would say. I've done a lot
that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, I do a lot of history research, and Nelson and I would hike looking for the old cemeteries, graves, homesteads, and I would just stop and say, oh, we're here. because you can feel history. I don't think that history is that distant. I think that nothing really ever goes away. Once you're created, and creation is beautiful. When you think about a flower opening every morning, that should be a miracle, and it should be treated as such. And our bodies are these amazing things, but not necessarily all physical. So I'm very sensitive there. But I think maybe the story that got me into this whole relationship with you two is when I was 12 years old, I lost a day in my life. I used to always walk around the vineyard. We had a farm with a 5-acre vineyard. And I'd always at least walk that once with my dog Pep, which is one of the stories I wrote about in the newsletter. And actually, that is the story I'm working on now, is Pep's life. I call her the lunchbox dog. Anyhow, I was walking around the vineyard, and then suddenly sort of a strange transition, and then it's getting dark. It's getting cold. It's getting dark. I'm thinking eclipse. No, it's not an eclipse. It's getting cold. And my dad is waiting at the end of the long driveway around the vineyard with a switch in his hand, so I'm in trouble.
Oops.
Well, I'd been gone since morning, and I missed dinner, which you don't do on a farm with a hungry family to feed. So you get the switch when you miss dinner. Makes sense. Mom works really hard on dinner, and I wasn't there. Did I worry about it? I never have. Just one of those things you accept. It's like, I wonder what happened. Well, I lost a day. I was somewhere else. And being that I'm sensitive to different areas, it's like, okay, I probably went somewhere. But then after that, I started with these interesting dreams where you're laying awake, or are you asleep? And I started getting these interesting visitations. They weren't hostile. If anything, they felt like doting parents, like they were concerned about me or something. But it was annoying, and I couldn't sleep unless I was already asleep and I was dreaming, and I could never quite decide that. But they were very long, well, not long, very tall, very flexible, and they kept putting their faces, I'll say, right up against my head to the point where you should feel breath. But there is no breath. And it was eerie. It was irritating. But it's really almost like a parent who's fussing over you too much.
Helicopter.
And this went on it went on for decades. And actually, in our place that we just moved from. So I'm now married and I have kids, and it's still happening. Not as often. But I had a dream like that, and I'm thinking, but I'm awake. But how do I know I'm awake? So I get up to go to the bathroom, and then I realize, my computer is still on. So I go to shut off my computer, realizing now I got an email. I'm kind of curious about the email, so I read the email, and I go back to bed. And darn it, they are still there. But this time, there's two different types of beings there. There's the tall ones, and then there's these short stick-figured things. And one is standing in the wall. I'm thinking, Okay, then you're ethereal because you can't be standing there because there's a window and there is a wall because it's the headboard of the bed. And they're standing. And I was irritated. And I just shouted out, "That's enough." And Nels woke up and I asked him if he saw them, but I looked around and they were gone. So, and that was the last time.
So they
I
did
haven't
respect
had that
you.
since. Pardon?
Wow. Well, they did respect you then. When you asked them to stop, they did stop, which is really quite nice.
You know, I'm okay. I'm okay. That's what, kind of like, stop fussing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's the story.
Well, there's a lot there. Ken, do you want to start speaking with her?
I'm going to let you take the first right here, Robin.
Okay. So, Martha, you shared quite a few things here. In terms of, the lost time and then the visitations starting, did you keep all that to yourself? Like, you said you had the experience where you learned you don't tell people about the voices. Did you ever tell anybody about these visitations other than probably Nels, your husband?
One person, yeah.
And how did that person receive you?
Well, she initiated this when she asked me if there was anything strange out there. So we had something in common.
Okay. So other than that, you kept it to yourself. So
pretty much. And that's not good because this is real.
Yes.
And that one girl that I was talking with, we compared, excuse me, I'm going to get a sip of water. We compared what we were seeing, and it was very similar. But the stick people, I didn't realize what they were until Nels got Ken's book in the mail. So we started watching the UFO movies, which I've never done. And yet my dad was fascinated by UFOs. But he never talked about things either. But I suspect he probably had seen some. He was also a wanderer like me. It's probably where I get it from. Wanderer and lover of books. But they both, my friend and I, talked about them as extremely tall and very flexible. And you wonder really if there's any physical structure there at all. Where the stick people seemed more physical. Although that one was standing in the wall, so how physical could that be?
Well, they have some sort of shape that's some sort of physicality, but it has adaptability to the environment different than our human bodies.
Right.
So when you read Ken's book, and the book we're referring to is Ken Sylvester's best-selling book called "We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof." So when you read that book,
one that, yeah.
So when you read that book, did you feel like one of the chapters that he was writing about, you knew which group of ETs had been visiting you?
Maybe the closest was yours, Robin.
Okay.
Because
the
you
Zetas,
didn't feel violated or threatened. And I never felt violated or threatened.
Okay. Yeah, I can.
And then the stick people that I'm talking about. When you watch those videos, people call them the Greys.
Yeah.
I didn't know that terminology, but
yeah. Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Well, there's a whole lot of different directions we could go with this. But what I'm hearing, first of all, is an extraterrestrial by the name of Bashar is coming in. Have you ever heard of Bashar?
Of the what?
His name is Bashar. Have you ever heard of that extraterrestrial?
I've heard of different names, yes. What's the palace?
No, this one.
Or something?
No, you're thinking of the Pleiadians. So anyway, when you re-listen to this, you'll catch the name Bashar. And Bashar is an ET who channels through a lot of different people. And he is coming through right now to make contact with you. He says that he has regular contact with you. He's not one of the ones that would come and be like helicopter ET parents on you. But he does have a relationship with you. You've had it with him for a long time, not only in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes as well. He says that he was the one that guided you to know that you wanted to move to the location that you're at now, that where you're living right now is sacred land, and you know that. That's why you made sure you and your husband got there. Bashar is speaking about underneath the property. There's a lot of activity that's benevolent. There's a lot of Native American activity. And also you have a lot of Bigfoot activity around you. And now Bashar is stepping back, and there is a Bigfoot who is very friendly with you and Nels, loves you guys very, very much. He's coming to speak with you. He says that a lot of the Bigfoot that were there have left because they can't tolerate the sound patterns of the people who live there anymore, that they wanted you to move there because of the nature of who you are, that you yourself are a hybrid, that you can walk between the doorway of time and space, which is why you had a missing day. The Bigfoot saying that when you went that day, you actually went with Bigfoot. You didn't go like up into a spaceship or something. You went with Bigfoot. And so that's part of why you are drawn to the property that you're living at now with your husband, Nels. This Bigfoot is saying that they will only come to certain people who they've known for a long time, who they trust, and who they can collaborate with, who they can co-create with. They are made up of Atlanteans and two other ETs. I'm not remembering it. I'm sure that Ken will. Ken, do you remember what the Bigfoot said that they're comprised of?
Yes, Atlanteans, Lemurians, and a gorilla.
Okay. So, and I'm hearing that's accurate. And so, because both you and Nels have had experiences with those different extraterrestrial lineages, then you've also had experiences with Bigfoot, both on this planet and in other dimensions as well. So, in terms of these beings who were coming and tending to you, there's something that we can do in terms of bringing you to your preconception karmic boardroom and finding out, did you have a contract with them or not? Do you want to do that, Martha?
I'm not sure.
Okay, then let's not do it if you're not sure. Based on what I was just telling you about your experiences with Bigfoot and feeling really drawn to the property that you are living on now, do you want to talk about that?
Actually, we almost didn't buy this property.
Well, tell us that story then, how it came to be that you did.
I kept looking at it online, and it looked like it was on a cliff. And I have a bad leg. It was definitely a destiny, I guess you would say, because we were coming to Idaho to look at another place. And by the time we got here, the deal had closed. So we had this extra time and said, well, let's go look at the place of the pond, okay? And we ended up buying it.
Wow.
But,
well, how do you feel living there? You were talking before about how, you experience things by feeling things and hearing voices. So what was that like for you?
It's nice. This life isn't for everybody. I could go a good week without seeing anybody from the outside. We're very rural. I like that. I like being rural. It's a interesting geology around here. Lots of springs, lots of ancient thermal stuff from, huge volcanoes. Our place has got lava rock all around it, and yet I'm not by a volcano, so it just shows the immensity of the volcanoes that did happen at one time. I like the fact that we're spring-fed. There's some interesting, I guess you would call them, folds of energy on this place.
Yeah.
One incidentally is right where the pack rat lives. That's like, why did you put your den there? But anyhow, yeah, you can feel things, and I like living close to the Native Americans here.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually live on a reservation. It's a open reservation. Yeah, but I've always embraced the Native American values.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that part of being here. Yeah, we enjoy it here.
Martha, after you moved into the property, how long before you had your first encounter with Bigfoot?
I have not had an encounter with Bigfoot.
Okay. So are you sensing them telepathically?
I have kind of mixed feelings about Bigfoot. Whatever you want to call Bigfoot or Yeti
Sasquatch?
or
Yeti.
Sasquatch. I have a question because I'm always wondering, right?
Yes.
Did the Neanderthal really die out?
Oh, that's a great question.
If so, why don't we find all their bones? We find everybody else's bones. But where's the Neanderthal?
That's a good question.
So I would have that to me is more of a perspective than, I guess, an ape man is. One succeeded, the Homo sapien, and one died out because, well, we don't know why, but it died out because we make these facts, and facts become history, and darn it, you better agree with me. But really, where are their bones? There was a lot of them.
Well, maybe they were the Sasquatch. Maybe we are all from the stars. We talk about extraterrestrials, but really, who are we? We came from the stars. And then we came here and we adapted and we've evolved into different life forms, whether human or otherwise. But I like where you're going with this. It's kind of resetting something very familiar in my being, Martha. And I don't know that, we often say on the show, it's an experience, not an explanation. And with what you just said, Martha, I am having an experience where this is ringing true to me, that my ancestors are the elements, which is what the Native Americans teach us, right? Who are our real ancestors? It's the elements. But also, the Native Americans have recognized the star people and the star beings way before the rest of us did. So there's some sort of threading of energy happening. And right now in my clairvoyant mind, I'm seeing the beings who visited you that you would see. And what they're telling me is that they have continued to visit you, that they did have permission from you to do it, but you put up you renegotiated with them how they could go about doing so. Because
exactly. Oh, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Just don't keep me awake all night.
Yeah. All right.
No.
So they're presenting.
It's always present. Yeah.
And they're saying that they're really delighted that you have come out of the closet with them, that you're talking on this podcast about them, about your relationship with them.
Well, my little voice said so.
Well, there you go. That intuition, that inner voice that we all need to be listening to. So, yeah, you're really quite a gift, Martha. I'm truly delighted to be having you on the show and sharing some moments of our lives together. And again, I can feel those beings. I do feel like they want to say something to Ken. They're the beings that have been renegotiated and how they contact Martha. They're advising Ken and Robin and anyone else listening that we can renegotiate with them at any time. For example, first of all, we can decide whether if we even had a contract with them. If we didn't, then they just need to go away. But if we do have a contract with them, they're saying we can always renegotiate it. They never want us to be uncomfortable. That's not the point of us having any sort of interaction with them. They're saying that they don't want to feel like a guest that stayed too long at someone's home. They want to feel like whatever is transpiring is in that place of wonder, both of them for us and us for them. And Ken, they're asking you if you have any questions of them.
There's still voices in my life. Just not making me an insomniac.
Exactly. Yes. And my arms are lighting up with just the joy of this conversation. Ken, is there anything you'd like to share?
Yes. Recently, I was telling you I was watching a documentary done on this Prime Video channel called Gaia, and they were interviewing interdimensional beings who were being channeled on this program. And the Pleiadians have said in both shows that I watch that right now basically there is an awakening that's going on, that things like are happening to Martha and some other guests that we have, that they are finally starting to come out and feel safe, and that there are many, many more stories to come out, and that we're in a transition to try and achieve going from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, and this is part of it.
So yeah. Martha's inner voice guided her to come do it, and it's making even more sense.
You can feel energies changing, especially just frankly in the last couple of days.
I agree
really
with
been
that.
Changing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my message to the world is never stop wondering, and don't grow up so much. We're being fed so much knowledge that is false knowledge that we're losing our strength.
Yes. Well, with that, Martha, do you have any questions or anything else you'd like to say before we come to the close of the show?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
And how about you, Ken?
Nice to talk.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here with us, and I hope you come back again. Ken, is there anything else you'd like to bring through?
Just that I'm starting to feel the energy from Martha, like I did the last time, where I'm starting to open up a little more to be able to find commonality in these things, because they're happening to me right now also.
Do you feel safe, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. And Martha, you sound like you feel safe.
Yes.
And I feel safe too. And I think that's a great gift that we are publicly
And when you feel
speaking.
safe, you can be loving. And I think that's what I think is opening up right now.
I
loving.
do agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with you that when people feel safe, that they can feel more loving. And so I'm feeling a lot of love just exponentially coming through. And again, the being Bashar is here. I feel like he wants to say something in closing. Many people do channel that particular extraterrestrial, but he's happy to be with us, and he's happy to help. Okay, he's saying that he would like to help Nels with the work he's doing with the animals. And so for those of the people who don't know, Martha's husband, Dr. Nels Rasmussen, does remote and in-person healing for humans and pets. And we often have him on the Believe Me movement show to help with people who have been abducted, who have had a trauma, to get the trauma out of their bodies, and also if the pets, for any reason, are having any kind of issue. And so Bashar is coming through and saying he'd like to help Nels and us with that type of work. And then the beings who have been visiting Martha, some of them are identifying as Pleiadian. They're the really tall ones. And what they're saying is that they have some concern that this particular race within the Pleiadian race could become extinct. And so they have looked for humans to hybrid with, to be able to sustain their particular type of species. And the way that they do that is through adamantine particles, building a bridge, and then creating a relationship in the heart, so that all that is created comes from love. And that Martha agreed a long time ago to be a being who would stay in wonder and stay open to create that communication and to help them not become extinct. And they're saying that they have something to do with the Neanderthals and where those bones went. So we're not going to get into that right now because we are coming to the end of the show. So you have been listening to the Believe Me Movement podcast. And as you continue to listen to any of our episodes, you're going to have a mind-bending experience. You're going to be filled with wonder. So we do ask you to acknowledge that the Believe Me Movement is an experience, not an explanation. We're not telling you what to think, but we do ask you to be open-minded. This is a place where, as you've discovered with Martha as our guest, that we offer a relaxed and safe space for those of you who are courageous enough to share your profound and sometimes befuddling experiences. So if you're ready to become a guest and be the seat of honor on the Believe Me Movement podcast, like Martha did today, we would love to hear your personal experiences. And remember, it can be about anything. Did you have a mystical pet story? Do you have a pet who needs healing? Do you have any kind of paranormal experience? Have you seen a UFO, been abducted? It doesn't matter. If you're ready, you feel safe, we invite you to the show. And the way you become a guest on our show is you email me. My name is Robin Alexis. You email me at spiritladyrobin@gmail.com. That's spiritladyrobin@gmail.com. And I will get back to you, and we will schedule you to come on our show. This podcast has been brought to you by best-selling author Ken Sylvester. He's the co-host, and he's also the author of the book, We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof. And I am Spirit Lady Robin Alexis. We are your hosts of the Believe Me Movement podcast. We bow deeply to Martha today. It's been a complete and total joy having you on the show. Martha, thank you for coming. And this show has been brought to you by RobinAlexis.com. That's RobinAlexis.com. Please subscribe and like our YouTube channel, the Believe Me Movement podcast. Over and out, everybody. Thank you for listening.